Hello students, welcome back once again in this session with the same chapter Nutrition in Animals for class 7. Today I am here with the topic the how digestion taken place in the small intestine. That means we have before going to start the chapter, now again we have to recall what we have learned in our previous chapter. Okay? So we have learned in our previous chapter about certain glands, about the glands. And what was that gland? That is pancreas and the liver. And we know that we have three glands which helps in digestion. So the third one, that is our salivary gland, we had already talked about when we talking about the digestion in mouth. Okay, so here we have to discuss about this gland, which is pancreas and liver. So actually we have already learned about it. What is pancreas, where it is located, what is their juices, just how what they secretes, what is their juices, and also what is liver, where it is located, and what they release. So we had already know about this glands, that is pancreas and liver. So now today we are going to know, when the digestion of food taking place in the small intestine, what is the role of this pancreas and liver. Okay, so move here on the screen. As we can see, small intestine. What is small intestine? Small, it is not small, it is a highly coiled part. Highly coiled part means it is look like this, and this is the highly coiled part. As you can see in this picture, it is a highly coiled part, so it looks small, but actually it is not small. It is 7.5 meter long. That I told you, alimentary canal is approximately 9 meter long, and from that 9 meter, 7.5 meter is your small intestine. That means it is the longest part of alimentary canal. And what happens in small intestine? So after leaving stomach, the food enters into the small intestine. So small intestine में क्या होता है? The complete digestion is taken place. So it is also called site for complete digestion. That means the food what we eat, when it comes to the mouth and when it is reaches to the small intestine, it is completely digested. So it is the site for complete digestion. And the small intestine receives the secretion from pancreas and liver, as well as their intestinal wall itself releases a juice called succus entericus. That means after digestion in the intestinal wall, they release certain juices which helps in complete digestion. So that is about small intestine. First we have to look, if you can see in this picture what you have seen. This is our food pipe, very well known. This is our stomach, a bag-like structure. And just after the stomach, there is a bend part which is known as duodenum. That is the very first part of small intestine. So what they do, they receive secretion from liver as well as pancreas. And this is jejunum and this is ileum. Both the part are highly coiled part. It is highly coiled part, and in both of that part, the chemical digestion is taken place. So this is about the different parts of small intestine and where it is located. Okay, now small intestine having three parts. Just now I told you that duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Duodenum is just a bend part, nothing else, and it is the very first part of small intestine. And jejunum and ileum, both of them are highly coiled part of the small intestine. So what is the function of duodenum? That receives juices from liver and pancreas. That means the food which is partly digested in the stomach, when it comes to the duodenum, there also with the help of juices from liver and pancreas, that partly digested food is further digested in duodenum, and it also receives chyme from the stomach. That means the chyme is semi-solid food with the stomach fluid, that is called chyme. That means the food when it comes to the duodenum from stomach in the form of semi-solid paste, that is called chyme. Okay, and jejunum, that also helps in chemical digestion, and then ileum, they are highly coiled part, both of them actually, jejunum and ileum, both of them are highly coiled part, and it is the part of small intestine, and here in the ileum part complete digestion is taken place. And the intestinal wall, like that means if this is the intestinal wall, so this intestinal wall, they secrete certain intestinal juices which is called succus entericus. Okay, and that succus entericus helps in complete digestion. Okay, let's move. Now I would like to show you with the diagram. Okay, I will try to make a diagram so that you can understand what happens in the small intestine. Okay, so let's see. As we know that this is our food pipe. Okay, then we have stomach. This is our bag like structure which is called, that is called our stomach, and from this part there is a muscle like structure which is called a splinter, and from this part the duodenum is, this is duodenum part. Okay, so let me show you once again. Okay, so this is the duodenum part. This is duodenum part. Okay, and now I will just show you the diagram, a rough diagram of our small intestine. Here it is the large intestine. This is our rectum. This part is rectum, and this is the anus part. Here we have a small finger like projection which is called appendix, and then this small intestine now, like this is highly coiled part. This is highly coiled part. I'm just doing a rough diagram so that you can understand what is this. Okay, now, so what happens when food reaches to the small intestine? When food comes in the stomach, it is a solid part. Okay, when it comes in the stomach, churning of food is taken place, and because of the presence of certain juices which is released by gastric glands from the stomach, they break down the food into the simple like small particles. Okay, then this food comes into the duodenum part. So here again, this duodenum, I told you that in the loop of duodenum or in the below the stomach, there is a leaf-like structure which is called pancreas, which is a gland. Okay, so what happens? This pancreas, they release their secretion into the duodenum, this part. So they release, or this is the duct of pancreas, and they release their secretion into the duodenum. And again there is another gland, liver, and that liver having gallbladder. So this gallbladder also support their secretion into the duodenum part. Okay, so duodenum is the wider part of the small intestine. Okay, what happens then? So when the juices released from their glands into the duodenum, so this gland like liver or the gallbladder and the pancreas, they only have one function. They secrete their secretion or their juices into the duodenum. That's all. So when the food comes into when the juices released by their glands, and it will come into the duodenum. And the food particles, like this is the food particles, with the help of this juices, the small particles, with the help of these juices, they again further they break down into the again very small and fine particles. Okay, then that food travel from this duodenum and reaches to the small intestine. Okay, small intestine. So what happens in this small intestine? So when it comes to the ileum part, that is our, let me write, it is the ileum, and this part, upper part, is called jejunum. Okay, this is jejunum and this is ileum. So when the food comes in this part, which is the very high coiled part, here the what I have seen that in duodenum already certain part are digested. Now the leftover enters into the small intestine, ileum part of the small intestine. So this part having intestinal juices, that means their wall secrete juices, which is called succus entericus, and with the help of that intestinal juice, the remain food is get completely digested. No more digestion is needed after that. That means we can say ileum is the part where complete digestion is taken place with the help of intestinal juices or the other glands juices. So here food is completely digested. So there is no need for any further digestion. So what I told you, that 95% of food is get digested into the stomach. 5% which is left is completely digested from duodenum to the ileum. It means the small intestine, because duodenum is also the part of small intestine, a very first part and only a bend part. It is not coiled, but jejunum and ileum are coiled parts. So here the digestion is completely taken place. Now what happens after digestion is taken place? So here in the wall of intestine, if we can see the wall of intestine, they have finger-like projection, which is called villi, minute finger-like projection, and this villi is richly supplied by blood vessels. Richly supplied by blood vessels. Okay. So now what happens in this part? So after digestion is completed, so complete digestion is taken place in the small intestine, and the further part, the further step, which is called absorption. Okay, that is already written here. This is absorption. Absorption also taken place in the small intestine itself. So how it takes place and where it takes place? Again, the intestinal wall, they have very minute finger-like projection called villi. Okay, villi is a plural and villus is singular. So there is minute finger-like projection found in the intestinal wall, which is called villi. And what is the function of this villi? It increases the surface area for absorption. So what do we mean by surface area for absorption? Like there is two surface, this only the part and this much part. So here we can say little amount of absorption is taken place, and that part having a large surface area. So here the absorption taken place in large amount. So that is the function of our villi. What the villi do? Actually, this villi is a very fine hair-like projection or fine finger-like projection, and it is millions and trillions in the intestinal wall. So then what happens? The food which is digested, it now absorbed by the small intestine, villus or villi. They are absorbed by this villi, which is a finger-like projection. And after getting absorption, because it's a very thin thin intestinal wall, thin finger-like projection, so when food get digested, this villi helps to absorb absorb the food material. So it increases the surface area for absorption. So food is get absorbed very rapidly with the help of this villi. This whole part is villi. It is villi. Okay. Then I told you that this is richly supplied by blood vessels. As you can see, this is richly supplied by blood vessels. So what is the function of this blood vessels? In our body, from top to bottom, we have millions of blood vessels. It is spread like anything in our body, and that vessels contain blood. That blood is a fluid which helps in transportation of all required materials for our survival, whether it is enzyme, hormones, gases, waste, or food. So here we are talking about food. So after getting absorption, the food is entered, the soluble food, because when the food is digested, it becomes simple soluble food. Simple soluble means that food is get soluble with water or with blood or liquid. So then absorbed by the villi, and it is entered into the blood vessels. And this blood supply or transport the all food materials to our body. So this blood vessels, what they do, they carry or transport the whole food materials, which is soluble part of the food, and it is transported to each and every cells of our body. As we know that our body is made up of cells. So now what happened? Okay, as you can see, absorption is taken place. Just now we have discussed absorption is taken place, and then that food, absorbed food through the villi, it will enters into our blood, and that blood transport that food into our cells. This is our cell. Cell is very small part of our body. It is the smallest unit of our life. So this cell require, because whatever we do, whatever function is done by us, it is actually cells. If we need nourishment, it means our cells doing the nourishment process. So here this the food is now, it is reached through the blood vessels to this cells. And what happens after that? After that, this part is happened, that is assimilation. Assimilation means utilization of food. So now blood carries digested food or dissolved food to all parts of the body, where it becomes assimilated, means utilized as the part of the cells, and is utilized for obtaining energy and all. So when food is transported through the blood into the cells, cells utilize that food. Even in the digestion process, that cells need energy. So that food, when it comes to the cells, they utilize our food for what? For our energy, for growth, for development, for building up new tissues, and also for repairing old tissues. As we know that every day we lost our some cells, and we also get new cells. So every day the cells is like they arises in our body. So this cells is arised because of this food, because for this development, they need the food material. So these cells utilize that food for energy, for building up new tissues, for also repairing old and damaged tissues, for various metabolic activities. So that is happens in after when the food is digested in the small intestine. Absorption is taken place, and then assimilation is taken place. Then what happens with that food? What after that food is completely digested, what is the end product of that food? Okay, so the end product of food is like protein. That protein is changed into amino acid or amino acid. So this is the end product, and this amino acid is the simplest form of this complex protein. So after digestion or assimilation, that protein is completely digested into, and it becomes amino acid, then fat. This fat is completely digested, and it becomes fatty acid and glycerol. Okay. So fat is completely digested into fatty acid and glycerol. This is the simplest form of that fat. And after that, carbohydrate. This carbohydrate, they change into glucose, that is the simplest form of carbohydrate. So that is how after digestion the complex food, that is protein, fat and carbohydrate, they get converted into their simplest form, that is amino acid, fatty acid and glycerol and glucose. So that is happens during the digestion process in small intestine. I hope you all are clear what I told you just now. So go through this lecture and just do it, the assignments and all. Thank you very much.